Welcome to the Long Thread podcast about spinning, stitching, and weaving by hand. The podcast is presented by Long Thread Media, publishers of Handwoven, Piecework, Spinoff, and Little Looms magazines. Find us online at longthreadmedia.com. I'm your host, co-founder Ann Merrow. This season is sponsored by Webs. Webs, America's yarn store, is your source for everything you need for your next weaving project. Webs carries a wide selection of yarns, looms, tools, and accessories, and you can save up to 25% every day with the Webs discount. Visit yarn.com for more info. This week, Nilda Callanaupa Alvarez joined me from her home in Cusco, Peru. Nilda is the founder of the Center for Traditional Textiles of Cusco, which supports indigenous weaving, spinning, and needlework artisans in the Andes. In the middle of their second winter of the pandemic in the Southern Hemisphere, we talked about what COVID has meant for the weavers there, what projects the center has created with the weavers, and how textile lovers can have a relationship with the weaving communities from afar. So, Nilda, are you in Cusco now?
Yes, I am in Cusco. I live between Chinchero and Cusco. So most of the days I'm in Cusco because the center is located in Cusco. So because I am in charge of the administration part, but I go back and forth.
You said you're in charge of the administration part. The CTTC was your project, right? Did you start that?
Yes, it happened in the middle of the 70s. I started with a group, adult weavers from Chinchero. Very informal, like any another project. And in the 90s came out, the idea of kind of formalize any type of project and do it to that, we start planning. In 1996, we founded with a group of family and friends from North America and Cusco, the Center for Traditional Textiles of Cusco, which is the CTTC. And since then, CTTC works in 10 communities in Cusco region, in different places with different styles of textiles, and we try to encourage to them to keep their textile tradition.
If you see a group of weavers from the Cusco area, you can very easily tell what different groups' textile tradition is.
Definitely. Textiles and the traditional clothing is part of our regional identity. So you don't have to show your ID. People should be able to recognize by your hat, by your jacket, by your textile, by your skirt, by their clothing. So that's what's until today our textile, and that's why it's very important to keep strong this identity cultural issue of the different regions and communities.
So when you started, were people as excited about weaving, or did they seem to be making as many textiles then as they seem to be making now?
No, in many cultures, when another culture comes on the top, they kind of try to shadow what's the original. So that's what happened when the Spaniards landed to this part of the world. They try to impose many things like in the religion, the cultural aspect, many traditions from Europe, Spain, to this part of the world. Many things have been changing in the first century. Of course, the imposition of many practices had been forced. The Inca culture, which precedes to us, had been a very developed culture in many ways: architecture, religion, arts, which is part of the textile, language, social organization, hierarchy, etc., etc. But that was broken in parts, and so the declination of the use of the traditional clothing even had been prohibited. Textiles and like that had been in constant transition. It's normal to have transition, but in this case it was, I would say, much strong, rapidly and forced. So little by little had been declining the use. Instead, like in my grandparents' age, they were trying themselves, forcing to change their children to look like the Spaniards, so they don't suffer like they have suffered all the abuses from them. So, like in my mother's case, I come from a mixed blood, I would say, Spanish and Inca. So my grandmother say, you have to be educated, to my mother. You have changed your clothing. These things, all the suffering should be the end in my generation, not in your generation. So should speak Spanish, you should go at least 3 years to the school. Change happens. So clothing changed, textiles has changed, practice has changed. Many things have been changing. So that's the case of the textile declination and change to the finer, narrow designs and simpler designs, which was practiced by my mother. Meanwhile, the elders, of course, knew still the old tradition of the textiles, from who I learned. The first steps, for example, I learned through my mother. She told me how to spin behind the ship, because I come from the agriculture family with the animals, with the farms, and that's how I grew up. So I learned my first spinning behind the ship, and also the weaving. But the most complex old technique, I had to learn vocabulary and everything from the elders in my community. And later I went to another place to study and research about that.
Were they willing to teach you?
Yes, of course they wondered, because that was the years when the women were not educated yet. So I was talking with the generation that they were never went to the school, and for them, of course, weaving is part of their tradition, very important, that showed their ability, their capacity as home holders, mothers who will provide different style of clothing to the family. So the proudness for them meant a lot, but younger generation of my age, we didn't care about that. We didn't know about that. So they say, why you like to learn, to weave? You should go to the school, get education, learn very well the language Spanish, and change your life, because there is no kind future with this for you guys, I say, I love to weave, and I like to learn more to weave. And say, yeah, you can come, you can watch me, you can start weaving, I can teach you, like that type of thing. But it was totally different. It was kind of incorporating their life, be part of their life, because they have another things to do too. They were not instructors. I didn't pay, or if I paid with the products or with presents and like that. So it was totally different experience from what we will know now, how you learn certain things.
Well, one of the things that changes over time, that at least that I've seen, is that for a long time, people weren't very interested in natural dyes. But when I think of textiles at the CTTC or in your region, I think of all those bright colors, and so many of those are with natural dyes.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned before, the transition of the weaving was declining. And when I started realizing in the 70s, everybody was using chemical dyes. And that was the year since 50s, 60s, we were also declining to the use of the synthetic yarn, acrylic, 100% acrylic, and that was because the dyeing process was very poor, chemical dyes. We start, manufacturing, and the quality was so low. So when you wash, or when the rain got it into a textile, colors start mixing up. Weavers, of course, hated it because it shadowed all their designs, and they didn't like. So they say, oh, well, we can sell the wool, we can sell the alpaca fibers, we can buy acrylic yarn, and we can weave. It's already dyed and never fight. So that was the biggest change, what was happening then. Also, the reproduction was for themselves many times, or to give presents like that. Meanwhile, today is totally different. So that's the time when I started introducing myself into that world. Since then until now, oh my God, it went beyond of my expectation. The quality achievement until today, I never thought that we have such capacity, ability to produce these textiles. For some weavers are just to look something for a few minutes, make warp and start weaving. Some weavers, we struggle more to study a little bit, but it's incredible. is sometimes unexplainable, how the achievements, the result of the capacity, patience, the professionalism, all the masterpieces today that I produce from hand-spun yarn, very fine yarn, natural dye. And talking about natural dye, I have researched a lot since the 90s because I was very curious about the pre-Columbian textile. And talking by the pre-Columbian textile, the origins of these textiles that we practice today goes back to thousands of years in our history, to the pre-Columbian times. And there were many sophisticated culture in the textile production, techniques, uses, many things that we cannot figure out yet today, even, in many museums, they are selling the few thousands old textiles like they would be woven yesterday. In some pieces, they like waris and paracas mantles and chimu textiles are, like extremely fine. The yarn is like thickness of my hair, and the complex designs that they have applied. And the colors, when to talk about the colors is like you would dye it yesterday. So that was how the master they were to come out, accomplish their colors. So because that intrigues me, that how these colors can stay so many years and intact and such bright and nice. So I started studying. I took many courses, studied books, and tried. What I have taught, instruct to the weavers for the first time in 1998 in my home village, Chinchero, was kind of mixed things, workshop, and the interview to the elders in the different communities, what they know, what they have heard, because they didn't practice. And all the information that they gave me, especially the elders, that's what we have applied, and that's what we are getting the colors from. There was a lot connection between highland and the jungle, and many of the dyes and mordants came from that part, from different levels of elevation, and different plants, flowers, roots, lichens, etc. So it's in this last decade, I have been dedicating a lot of time in dyeing, and I love it. To me, to get a color, to me, is like a miracle. It really, I feel a huge satisfaction. And sometimes unplanned colors you get, but they're beautiful. And depends of the season when you are dyeing certain colors more intense. And the Andean colors have been, as you mentioned, very intense, brighter colors. And that's what we like to get with the natural dyes. But sometimes it's very time-consuming and expensive in time and the cost, because that's been twice dyed, 3 times dyed. So over-dyeing, first one color, then next another color, then dump to the another color, for example. That was how rich, I guess, our pre-Columbian textiles and today textiles. To get soft colors is much easier. And today, I don't know, happily or sadly, I should say that the yarn factories are copying these natural colors, earthy colors, and they're coming out with the chemical dyes, similar colors to this. So sometimes it's hard to say today which ones are natural colors or which ones are chemical dyes.
So how far do people have to go to get the different dye materials that they need? You said up at the high and down in the Amazon. And
Okay, in the Andes, in Peruvian culture, we are very famous in the commerce. And that existed from the pre-Inca times. There was commerce from the coastal area to the highland. From the highland also to the jungle, to the lowlands. So all that commerce went up. That's why you could find coastal things in the jungle things in the coastal, passing through the Andes, So there were people dedicated to take aniline dyes to the jungle, to the coastal and to the highland, and bring from another countries like Bolivia to Peru and take certain things, that those people change their kind of business, and they dedicate to connect the lowland people to collect certain types of materials for natural dye, and they bring us and they sell us, they go back and forth. So that kind of connection we have. We can't go ourselves because we don't have land in the lower land. You cannot do by yourself everything. We are weavers, we are spinners. Every day you spend in that, the plants has to come somewhere else, brought by somewhere else.
The Silk Road is very famous, but it almost sounds like you have the Alpaca Road from across the country and all kinds of trade going back and forth.
Exactly, the trade, and there is evidence from the pre-Inca times and the Inca. Just on the edge of the ocean, huge site, huge of the storage area to keep camelid fibers. And in another side, cotton. And I'm sure there was such thing also in the Andes to keep, because in the slopes, I can say the slopes like going to the coastal areas, there were textiles made with like weft cotton, camelid, the warp, mixed textiles. But in the highland, it's more camelid. But in the coastal areas, sometimes like Paracas, you will find camelid fibers, natural dyes, 100%. So the trade was still going on. I think so. It will go now. Even today, they built many roads facilitating that trading. So it will happen. Before it was in the mules, before it was in the llamas, weeks and weeks of traveling and picking up, and etc. That was the commerce.
But right now, it's difficult for people to trade.
Let me tell you, we didn't die since last year, March, until I did in one community last April. No, everything stopped. Down here, we had been affected much more stronger, I would say. It damaged a lot, the pandemic. Isolated people so much for a long time. No, we are just getting back because we are getting the vaccine over 50 years old. The damage of the epidemic was brutal in these areas. At the beginning, when we were shut down in Cusco in the Andes, we thought that COVID was not going to come. And we thought that high altitude was not going to allow, it's going to get weak, and it was not going to happen. We opened our doors, suddenly it arrived like a wave, killing many people. No hospital. We are in the third world, so the hospital facilities is very poor. No, we lost many, many people. It was really scary, sad, no job, no tourism, no economical issues, but there are people like in Cusco that lives from the dye and dye income. So like this year, they start going out because either they die from COVID or from hunger. That's why. So we got our expansion of the COVID was massive.
What has that meant for the weavers?
For the weavers was this connection with the rural areas. They had to survive from the production of their land and their animals. But the thing was that many of the children, since many decades, came down to the cities like Urubamba or the valleys. And when the shutdown came, all of them, they went. I don't know if you know about the Bible, when you read from Israel, people living with their families to the other place. To me, sound like that. Everybody like walking with the children, with the chickens and little animals, cats, dogs. They were going home to their communities. What created that in their communities? Maybe elder parents, like over 60 years, 65 years here, are quite old. They had been farming just for them, two of them. So we are based in potatoes country, so they eat, the diet is based in potatoes. They didn't have enough potatoes to feed like 4 children with their husband or wife and their children. So they create like kind of a lot of hassle. There was nice space to sleep in the house. They have to go to the family houses. There was enough food. So suddenly they start working so much in the land because there was nothing to do. They start making other breaks to build more rooms for the houses. But there was no money to make tile roofs, so they had to use dashed roofs and like that, whatever they have available. So it forced in many ways to do certain things that were never thought it was going to happen. Because, economy, the cash, the money really kind of pushes us from the cultivation of the land to get the food like our parents. We will buy, we will have money and other things. So that was kind of the food was, but when they went back then. So that created that kind of thing. Also, people from the cities, they went back to their communities. They didn't like anymore their land. Somebody else was cultivating their land for many years already. Now they go back and they start asking if they could return. Of course, they didn't like, so there was fights, many sad stories, But with the vaccine now, they're still coming back, returning to the cities again.
When I think about the CTTC, I went to Tincuy in 2017, and I know that there were other ones, but I think of everyone coming together and about, your store where there are textiles from many different places together.
Yes.
And how people couldn't come for a long time. People still can't come.
Not even until now. We just opened the gallery and the museum a week ago. We are having few visitors, families who are coming. We got stuck with a huge inventory of the textiles of the 10 communities. There is many sad stories. But also this pandemic brought some good, and I would like to live with us mainly. There were certain things that it could not have been done if it was not a pandemic. Like what? Rebuild our website. We have to create immediately with that the online sales, which helped us, you have to be creativity. We have to knock the heart and the door of many generous people to help you in contributing, the funding to do certain things. So we have done reconstruction of the store in Cusco, which was our dreams for many years, but it was only dreams. But we got the funding, we restructured, and today we have new store, online, new web page, repainting, reconstructing the roofs, the walls, many things, restructuring the administration department and like that. We are doing the second floor now. Soon we are going to start the expansion of our store and exhibition and education department in the second floor. It's fascinating. It's hard to believe for me that we are almost done with the first part, and it's totally different. Our store now gives more information, I think. I think it can make to understand to a visitor that's not normal business, one-person store. It's more like cooperative, benefiting to the weavers. So that's that. Now we are doing in Chinchero another reconstruction where it's starting. I'm mentioning about the generous people. The Andean textile art organized a few fundraising events. Now also is coming the auction, which they did last year too, to fundraise that, to send us the money to keep following these projects. So yeah, on the top of that, we kept. But there was moments that there was big silence, and you say, wow, what's the future of CTTC, Where we are here, it's like get out from this line, redirected to the light, which direction you will go, that type. So I am very glad that I have very supportive board member and Andean Textile Art, like our sister organization in time. I had knocked to the organizations also that they helped us in the past with funding. Say, look, the opportunity, there is good opportunities to come with that. And we did that. That's where we are now.
Besides doing things like renovating the store, what does the funding do?
Oh, we needed the funding urgent also for the weavers because we like to keep supporting the weavers. With the last year funding, we did, for example, the cell phone charge for the students because nobody can go to the school, and we are not going to go to the school probably until next March. Children are stuck in the homes. In many places, there is not even internet. They have to go to another place to get internet. So charge the cell phones. They have to get their cell phones charged, and through that, they get their classes. We got seeds because, as I mentioned before, potato seeds. There were not seeds because there was not even enough to eat. So if you don't have seeds, how you are going to plant for this year the potatoes? Because the planting season was last year in September, October, November. And they needed very badly the potato seeds and only tuber seeds, vegetable seeds, potato seeds. Some place they needed chickens for the eggs and for the meat. They like to raise their guinea pigs, for meat. Those kind of immediately fund, we did for Christmas to facilitate some needs like canned milk, rice, and detergents, all the COVID materials, alcohol, and the face masks, soaps, like that. Also, we provided wool and alpaca fibers so they could keep spinning, so they can have a yarn when it starts the season, so we can dye. Now, for example, in the auction, they are going to ask for the more recharge of the batteries for the students, and they are going to ask funding for the transportation to come to get their vaccines from the communities. They are going to ask money for, now we have the yarn, cochineal, the pink, purples, reds, burgundies, dye. We need cochineal. And cochineal in some places, because all those colors are dyed with the cochineal, and to get intense colors, we have to use a lot of cochineal. In some communities, we spend like 35 kilos, like 65 pounds of cochineal in 2 days of workshop. But you dye quantities. You can imagine like a community with 50 members. Each member put a skein of the yarn of 250 grams of yarn multiplied by 50. So you have like 3-4 pads of one color. So to each pad of that will go 2 kilos and half to 3 kilos of cochineal. So when you keep multiplying, cochineal quite use a lot. A pound of the cochineal is about 50, 60. Right now it's $50 because the dollar is high. So we are going to raise cochineal because nobody has money to buy now the cochineal. They will be so happy to do the dyes again. We are going to do dye. If we get enough funding, we may buy indigo, which also we buy. There are other colors we are going to be able to produce. So we have, always you have needs, and we are prepared to the weavers to have enough materials. And the generous people and some businesses starting order quite a bit of textiles, like from England. They asked to produce like over 500 meters textiles from 4 communities. So we have been busy. Well, I would say with some communities we have been busy. At the CTTC, definitely we have been very busy. Peruvian Connection asks us to produce certain pieces. Another stores also asked us, certain people, Smithsonian, always requesting more pieces. Not as a normal times when we used to sell from 500 weavers every day. There's no such thing, So, but we need, if we like to continue with this, we need to keep, gathering materials and keep trying to help them to do. The other is, first aid kits that we have to start again, because more than now they need assisting each other as much as we could,
So people who are participating in the auction could actually be helping to buy cochineal and help kids learn in school then?
Yes, and also I would love, because the kids are kind of desperate, because we have elders group in some communities and spinners, they produce yarn. Normal adult groups who are textile producers. We have our mission, is to revive, practice, pass to the younger generation, so the textile practices perdure forever for the next generations and give opportunity for creating income. That's our mission. So because that in each group, we have children group who are learning to weave, the narrow bands, narrow belts, and they are so anxious, to start weaving again. But we have so much weaving, we don't know what to do with. I hope soon we'll start conference. They can use like name tags. I don't know where I am going to find, but I would like to pull so much in those things so children can start weaving again, We have few orders on which we have been doing, but that was it.
You have children. Have you taught them to weave?
I had 2 boys. In the beginning, when they were 6, 7 years old, I taught them. They wove few narrowband. Now they went into the science and mathematics, all those kinds of things. My oldest son, who is 28 years old, is a computer engineer. My youngest son is economics. So they went to the another direction. I have nieces who are very good weavers and sisters.
Is it mostly the girls and women who are weavers?
In my community in Chinchero, yes. For some reason, we have inherited the weaving in the female culture. But in another community like Chawaitiri, Pitumarcas, Accha Alta, there are certain things that they do man, certain things they do woman. So children also, they are learning in that way.
It's very interesting that even though people were trading so much, there's so much difference between the different villages.
Yes, it's so wonderful. And the techniques also vary. A little bit the Quechua vocabulary also varies from one place to another place. And it's a process of learning that every time you go to a community, you learn something. They think I'm teaching, but I think I'm learning from them. So I think so it's reciprocity here in the process of learning to give and to receive. That's how it's done. To all our supporters, I think this is a reciprocity project. You support with your funding, generous funding, the survival of this textile. And what receives the civilization of you is the rich knowledge, the rich things that I can show you, you can appreciate. For me, it's a community reciprocity to help each other, because thanks to them, this textile practice is still alive. Thanks to them, the textiles can embellish their homes. And we don't produce like textiles to just hang. We like to produce textiles to use. Use like your clothing. Use like anything, always renovate like our clothing. That's the textiles which we like to produce. It's not the textiles that you use as a wall hanging, but you can use, but also if time arrives that you have to use as a tablecloth, do it. If you need to wash it. And steam iron to make nice flat. That's the objective of these textiles.
Do you have time to make any yourself?
And you know what? Still I am dreaming. And once, sometimes I think, last night I was talking with a very close friend, and she was doing, you have done so much to CTTC. And always when you have problems, you solve. What you are doing for yourself? That was a very tough question. And I say, what you like to do for yourself? And I say, to weave, to spin, to dye. when you are going to do that, and how old are you that, and how long you are planning in your life to do that. And she was making me to reflect, you have to think in yourself. That was my dream, to go back to my weaving, to my thing, and I have to find that person in my position to run the CTTC. I am hoping someday I will find, and someday I will do it. But I hope soon. That's my dream. And I might develop some kind of project. I have, before the CTTC, I love textile. So I started spending my few cents in collecting textiles. So I have my personal collection also quite big. Sometimes I totally forget. I am more all my 100% head and thinking is on CTTC, and I have been doing that for this many decades. But last night I was thinking, good question. What I'm going to do with my textile collection? What I'm going to do with this? How many years more I have, to weave? How is going to be my health issues and like that? Retirement, all kind of. You don't like to think of those things, but maybe I will arrange in the coming years a personal project of mine, because those textiles I have, it shouldn't be in the boxes. It should be available for people somewhere, So maybe I will find a partner who is much stronger, younger than me, and who can give me the energy, whatever. Maybe I will start another one. I don't know. It's just a dream. My immediate dream is to have time to weave, knit, buy, and do my things.
So I'm going to tell you about how some things are that I see here, and you tell me what it's like for you, okay?
Okay.
So when things shut down here, people were home all the time, and a lot of people started gardening or making bread, and a lot of people found again that they loved to, knit and spin and weave, and being at home a lot meant that they could do a lot more of that. What's that like where you are?
For me?
For you or for the weavers that you know?
Okay, for me it was a lot of meditating. I knew this, because tourism is very sensible to anything. And I used to tell to the weavers, but when the true time comes, it's different. So I say, myself, I ask it. You used to say, this can be forever. That's why I used to say, always farm your land, always have your animals, and like that. And this is the truth. So now, how you are going to redirection the CTTC? Is this the end? Is this going to continue? If continues, how is going to continue? Because just before the pandemic, a few months ago, we did a big meeting, a workshop about what's the next 5 years step for CTTC, but that was kind of stuck there. So for me, it was more like in March, I was so happy. Okay, I don't have to go to the office, no calls and phone. I can just look for the excuse, no more CTTC working. So, okay, pull out all the yarn. I am going to start my warp. I called to my friends and I say, come, let's work in this project. It was so exciting, March, April, May. I dedicate so much in warping and redesigning different projects, smaller, bigger, and like that. And of course, I was now going to weave, and I have to keep to another weavers starting. So that's how I did. But then, staff came, salary, budget, what's going to happen? That was the panic moment. And how we are going to meet, we can meet, how we are going to talk. Oh my gosh, a lot of things. So it was redirectioning, learning. And I hate to do the first web page of CTTC because it's extremely time consuming. Mike take the decisions. And I said, this time again? No, I say, no, I say, well, you cannot do online sale because your old web page is not going to sell. So I say, okay, I will do it. Who will do it? Not just by himself, you have to do all the. So that equipment, that group of staff, we worked together for many months on that. So that was for me, and now how I am going to get the funding, where I am going to, who I can go, who I should talk, like that type of things. For the weavers, I think was, what? We cannot weave anymore, What we are going to do? And I say, no, you don't have to stop. Look at how many skeins of yarn you have already dyed. You have to ply. That's going to take like 2 months. Your textile that you are wearing is getting old. You have 2 daughters, 3 daughters. Why you don't weave a piece for each daughter? Why you don't weave for yourself? Why you don't spin? So that's what I think the weavers were doing, dedicating a lot of time to their family, going to the fields, creating, raising many more animals. Is dying, of course, no incomes. So trading, you have to learn again potatoes with corn or many things. Since they couldn't go out to the markets, they were there, That's what happened. So every person, I think, including me, we found out how much more I can weave, how old I am. Do I need to do more weaving, or can I dedicate more time to the other things? That's another things. We talked a lot about that. Also, we have gave workshop about what's COVID, what means to be in this epidemic, what's the vaccines, how you can relax, what to believe, what to not believe. That kind of things also we gave talks in each community, little exercise, like relaxation, like type of things. So that's the weavers. I'm sure that many weavers, I don't know how many, they are not going to come back to their center because they may dedicate their time to another things. Who knows? Some young woman got their partner, now they're living there, start having family, that it does change.
And this doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic. You were talking about how at the start you put together a lot of warps. And most of the weavers that I know here in the States work on a floor loom. So you could put on a warp, but then never weave it. And it just sits here in your house. And the editor of Handwoven tells me that there's a phrase called a dog on the loom. And that means that there's something that you've started weaving and you just can't bring yourself to finish it and you're not excited about it. But when I think about the weavers that I've seen, if you have a backstrap loom and you have a dog on the loom, I picture something very different.
Yes, that's it. And also our warps, can be managed in different types of loom, and our loom are not expensive. So if your husband had been at home, you could say, carve for me this size of loom or that longer one. They can carve for you, and you can adjust certain tools by yourself, carving with your knife and like that. So it's quite different from the floor loom, and doesn't take a lot of space because you just wrap around. And a lot of ladies went to the jungle to pick up their tools like bamboos and like that type of thing, So there are many nice stories besides the sad stories. But COVID also damaged some health cases. There's pain in the back. I guess the lungs has some damage and like that type of things. They're wonderful weavers, some of them there in that situation.
Because weaving for a living is quite hard on your body.
It is.
It's not easy to do.
No, but if you know how to relax. What happens in the life of the weaver in the Andean culture is you start with the narrow, the circle goes by, and you might come out to the narrow again. You start with the spinning, the circle goes to the top and start declining and come back to the circle again, because at the age of adults in the age 13, 14, 16, 17, before the first child comes, before as a mother starts your obligation, that's the wonderful time of weaving the best pieces. Because nobody's bothering you, and you are showing up with your ability, capacity also, because people are watching you. And so that's the time to produce everything. Then comes children. You slow down because you get pregnant, the first child, you don't have experience. Mother-in-law, you don't have house, you have to build your house. And if you have wonderful husband, may allow you to weave. If not, you slow down. Then children grows up there, 4, 5, 6, 8, 12, 13. They know already to cook again. You come back again. You pick up again. Because finally you have free time. You don't have to cook again. You dedicate a lot of time. Then comes health issues. So it goes up and down, up and down. That's the circle.
So besides shopping on the new CTTC website, you mentioned that there's an auction coming up. Is that at the end of August?
Yes, with the Andean textile art.
So Andean Textile Arts works with CTTC, or it's not the same organization?
It's not the same organization because CTTC is created by Peruvian laws in Cusco, in Peru. Andean Textile Art is a non-profit organization, one entity created by laws of the United States. That's why they have the system of issuing the non-deductible tax receipts, for example. Meanwhile, we as a Peruvian entity, we cannot do that. Or it's not valid for many people. That's why Andean Textile Art is representative of CTTC. And at the beginning, started because CTTC need urgent an organization to get the funding to transfer to CTTC. But as a separate organization, Andean Textile also can fund to the other organizations, because that's their mission. Most of our funding comes from Andean Textile Art. Most of our founders, their funding goes through them.
So we'll have links in our show notes for finding the auction on ATA, but also for shopping through the CTTC website.
Yes, please. And we are open to any order. If you have different shape of table and you need tablecloth, please ask. We would need to receive as much as orders today so we can keep busy the weavers and create the income for them. That's our urgent need today.
And when people are visiting your website, can they find out about the different villages that the weavers are from and what sort of textiles they specialize in?
Yes.
Accha Alta, for example, has particular knitting with the baubles and...
Yes, each community is very much described into the community sections. What things they do, what's their background, their story about them. Please visit our website because you are there going to find a lot of that.
Thank you so much, Nilda.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And thank you for joining to this big effort in favor to the Andean weavers in the Cusco region.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I hope that you get to do some weaving just for fun.
I would love it to do that. There is this textile behind of me hanging that's produced in pieces, narrow bands, because I cannot produce wider pieces. But that was done, started the project, I don't know when I was with the first child, maybe. So maybe in the 1992, it just had been accomplished just few months ago because it was missing some pieces. So even I asked it to different weavers to help me to finish because there were many looms started in sections, and that's how it's done. So I'm so happy. That's, for example, finished after, 2 decades or something like that. And still I have many things start like yours, putting that example of the talking. And
thanks so much, Nilda.
Thank you, Anna.
Andean Textile Arts is holding its A Bid for the Future 2021 online textile auction from August 25th through August 28th. The auction will feature 70 handwoven and knitted items from Bolivia and Peru. Visit AndeanTextileArts.org to learn more and participate. You can find the CTTC online store at textilescusco.org. Thank you for listening to the Long Thread podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate the show and leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Thanks again.